What's good, everyone? This is going to be a really good video. This is going to be for you if you've worn athletic shoes all of your life, between basketball shoes, soccer cleats, football cleats, any type of shoe. You've been doing that, and you've also been going hard in your sports. You've been going hard in your training. This is going to be crucial for you because you're going to have some issues that are stemming from your feet being locked up in those shoes. So in this video, I'm essentially going to show you and tell you why you need to be training your feet if you want to clean up any imbalances that are leading to pain and injuries in your body, or you want to be able to prevent any future issues from coming up in the first place. So whether you want to be resilient for your rec ball games, you're not a pro, but you just want to be able to go have fun and excel in your games and kick ass in those games, whether you want to go run the occasional marathon, or whether you just want to just go run around and be active with your current or your future kids. Properly functioning feet are absolutely crucial for that. And I had to learn this the hard way. And countless times when I've worked with people in the past who've had issues, whether it be, shin splints, Achilles pain, knee pain, even up the chain, you wouldn't even think, like the low back. They've had those things for months or years, and they do the typical rehab, go see a physical therapist, go do some stretches, do some strength mobility exercises that they see online. They see little to no results with these things. And then when I assess them and I see that their feet aren't doing what they're supposed to do, then we start working on it. Those issues they've had for ages just start melting away as we fix their feet. And the reason why is because the feet are the very first connection, as you can see in this picture right here, that we have with the ground. They greatly influence muscle function and movement and joint health all throughout the entire chain. And this is because structurally, the feet literally form our base. So if the alignment through our feet and ankles is off, there's no way anything else up the chain of our body can be in position when our feet are on the ground. And secondly, you'll see here that the feet are wildly important from a sensory standpoint. And so basically the feet are collecting data about the surface that we're interacting with and inform the rest of our body on how to move based on that. For example, I'm sure at some point you guys have probably noticed how your running form has to be a little bit different on sand versus running on a harder track. And some of you may know this sport called beach sprinting. I think it's more popular out in Australia, maybe New Zealand. Don't quote me on that. But you'll see that the top guys, they'll have a slightly different running form, sprinting form, even though they're still trying to run at 100% speed. But because they're doing it on sand, it's going to look different than the best 100-meter, 200-meter runners, sprinters that you see typically in track and field running on a hard rubber surface. So there are slight mechanical differences there to essentially optimize efficiency on both surfaces. And your feet are the ones that are collecting that data about the nature of that surface and sending it to the rest of your body to inform your body on how exactly to move. Furthermore, there's also a ton of research that shows how important foot function is, how important it is for properly engaging the rest of your body. And so this one was basically testing to see how barefoot running affected muscle activation. And it essentially saw that there was greater muscle activity in the gastrocnemius medialis. That's the inside part of your calf, the big meaty part of the calf, and gluteus maximus. And both of those muscles are really, really crucial. And what's funny is that people will oftentimes try and engage the glutes with exercises like glute bridges and clamshells and those other types of rehab exercises that you'll see in PT offices. But it's not until you actually learn to engage and operate through the foot properly that you're really going to get the right glute activation. This study showed that there was actually a huge increase in glute activity and significant decrease in time to 75% maximum contraction. That means that the glute was working in a reflexive manner the way that it is designed to. Your whole body, running, walking, jumping, all of these athletic activities, they're meant to operate on the basis of reflex. So, you know, when you trip over something and then one of your feet go to the ground, the one that was in the air, it'll go to the ground really quick. That's an example of that reflexive action. And walking, running, a lot of times we get away from that. But naturally, that is how our body is supposed to run and sprint. It's by that reflexive action that happens. But when our feet aren't operating the way that they should, they're not structurally sound. And then from a sensory standpoint, they're also not sound. Then they're not able to allow the rest of the body to operate in that reflexive way. So years ago, I started realizing this, how weak and inactive my feet had become and how this was leading to a lot of issues. Like I had, sciatica, patella tendonitis, Achilles tendonitis, literally everything. I'm not even going to list everything, but I found that wearing super supportive shoes and insoles for so long, for so many years, had provided all this support, and it essentially allowed my feet and ankle muscles to completely shut down. And in retrospect, that played a big part in my cycle of pain and injury. And what's funny is that I was told by my orthopedic doctor to wear insoles. And yeah, sure, they can be a good fix in the short term, but my issue with most of the professionals who recommend stuff like that is that they don't provide any interventions that actually get to the root of the issue. Like, it's always treating the symptoms, superficial level. And when you take that approach and you just relieve symptoms, it's only a matter of time before new issues pop up. For instance, heel inserts for limited ankle mobility. I see that a ton. Now, you get those heel inserts in and you throw your pelvis positioning off. Your pelvis now has to shift forward to compensate for your feet not being in the right place. And everything from there just gets all out of whack because it's going to put more loading on that low spine, and boom, you have back pain all of a sudden. Now, that's just a random example. I'm not saying that's necessarily the case all the time, but you can see how when you alter the positioning of the body in an artificial way, it can just throw things off. And so the feet should act as the body's shock absorbers, and there's literally no replacing them. Not the best, fanciest tech in the world. It can't help you because it's not integrated with the rest of your body. And so the solution is to address your feet and ankle deficiencies. And I'm going to give you 3 ways that you're going to use and implement in your day-to-day life and training for you to be able to do that. So let's get into it. All right, the first one, ditch the shoes. At least all day while working. Like, I know most of you are working from home these days. You don't need any cozy slippers or anything like that. You can wear socks if you really need to, if your feet are a little bit cold, because, my feet get cold, so I feel you. But just at least while you're working, walking around the house, no need for shoes, no need for slippers. Go barefoot. For training, go barefoot for the entirety of your lifts. So you don't need shoes while you're lifting. You're not doing anything high impact where you're coming off the ground and then coming back to the ground. You don't need shoes. You're okay. Even if you're not very well trained through the feet, you'll be okay not wearing shoes when you lift. So just go do your entire lift barefoot, or at the very least for a portion of your training, at least maybe your warm-up. And these are actually, I put this here, these are Vivo Barefoots, VIVO, and no, I'm not affiliated to them in any way. I probably should get an affiliate link or something because these are really good shoes and I highly recommend them. I'm actually going to get this new pair that you see right here, this Primus light knit, or maybe the trail ones. Haven't really decided yet, but anyways, I think these are a really good option. If you don't want to go completely barefoot like me, you don't give a fuck enough like me, then you can get some barefoot shoes, some minimal shoes, or just wear socks. I prefer completely barefoot because even that little layer of socks will somewhat disrupt the sensory input from the ground. So I really just like to go completely barefoot when I'm training. And when I first started doing this, guys, I noticed results fast. Like, I felt more grounded, I felt more stable. My body and coordination in skill tasks just like it just felt way better. Like shooting a basketball, high jumping, all of that, I just felt more connected to my body, and it felt like I was able to make technical adjustments easier. I felt increased activation of my glutes and my other hip musculature, my core even. And again, this is because the bottom of the feet are so densely packed with those nerve endings that inform the rest of your body on how to activate and organize. And of course, cushiony shoes can impede this process if they're the only shoes you wear all the time. Now, I do want to give you guys a word of caution here. So, there is evidence. I'll give you my anecdotal evidence after I show you this research. So, there is evidence that shows that the resulting increase in ankle plantar flexion moment during barefoot running implies the need for increased eccentric work of the triceps surae muscles. Ultimately, this could lead to an increased risk for pathology in the Achilles tendon and may be considered a risk of running barefoot. So basically, what that says is that when you don't have those cushiony shoes on, you may be at greater risk for issues with your Achilles. And my anecdotal part of this is that I definitely have experienced this. I mean, I remember when I overdid it, essentially, and didn't just gradually get into it. I would just all the time. I remember I was living in New York City. I would walk around New York, the concrete, barefoot shoes. I'm not that crazy. Barefoot shoes all the time, and then I would go train barefoot, and then I would do high intensity stuff like high jump, even dunking sometimes barefoot. And it was just such a huge jump from wearing shoes all the time. Your body just gets adapted to these things, and some of these adaptations take longer because sometimes your body will literally calcify in positions. It'll harden. Your tendons, your ligaments, even your muscles will harden in these compromised states, or in these states that make it possible for you to be able to wear shoes and hold its position properly. It'll literally harden in those states. And so when you go to the extreme, you may feel good, but if you overdo it, it's really easy to find a lot of pain and injury. And for me, sometimes I literally woke up with really bad foot pain or flare-ups in my Achilles issues. And luckily, it was usually nothing that was really lasting past a day or two of recovery. But sometimes, even still to this day, if I push it a little bit too much, like too much intensity or too much volume, or for whatever reason my mechanics were just off, if one of those three variables or a combination of them is off, then I'll find that my Achilles will flare up a little bit. Now, I do know exactly how to fix it, how to rectify the situation, but I'll still, if I'm not taking care of my training load in that way, then I'll still see those issues. So remember, this isn't a tough guy sport. Playing that game is probably what got you injured and plateaued in the first place. So just gradually increase the volume of your barefoot work, and increase the intensity as well over time. And it's okay to throw the shoes back on every so often. Like, no need to quit them cold turkey. I still, till this day, will use trainers sometimes. Of course, I have to high jump in spikes. I have to play basketball in basketball shoes. So sports, you can argue whether we're necessarily designed to be doing sports, but I think that we should use the tools associated with those sports in order for us to keep our body somewhat safe, and keep that thing sustainable. So that's it on that. Just don't go too fast. But that brings us to our next point, which is and actually that is, again, like, you want to be barefoot as much as you can, but just make sure that you go in a progressive manner. And this next point is going to help us with that, because you're going to essentially speed up your ability to withstand all of that intensity, all of that load by doing this. So, foot and ankle specific exercises. You want to incorporate specific foot and ankle strengthening exercises as you transition to that greater volume of training barefoot and with minimalist shoes to essentially prepare your feet. And the first one is a simple single leg swap. And so essentially, this is going to be a little bit more of an advanced variation. Holding this baby kettlebell doesn't look like much, but it's real challenging to that whole front of the leg, this whole hip flexor area, and then you're challenging the dorsiflexion of this foot, and I'm swapping the weight underneath. And this, if you really load the foot properly, you really get a nice tall posture, then you're going to load this foot crazy and really bring more balance and stability to that foot. So I really love variations of the single leg swap, single leg stand. I have a tutorial on my YouTube of the single leg stand. Definitely go check that out if you haven't. And then next exercise is the lunge swap. Really, really love the lunge swap. It's really just a simple exercise, but again, the cues take it to another level. You want to make sure you're sitting your hips back instead of just having your torso totally straight up and down. You want to make it almost as if you're sitting back into a squat. My torso is a little bit upright here in this video, so I would have my hips back a little bit more. But basically, this one, especially when you close the eyes, both of these exercises go crazy when you close the eyes. But just even without that extra stimulus of closing the eyes, just holding good posture, really making sure the feet are pointed perfectly straight and not turned outwards. Again, there's another video that I have on perfect posture that will show you what straight is. It's actually not what you think it is with your feet and with your hands as well. But anyways, just make sure you use those cues. You really come into your body and really load that foot. Both feet actually work a great amount if you're really paying attention to the way that they're aligned in this exercise. So this is a really good one from beginner to advanced levels. I always love incorporating this and variations of this. So that's it for the strengthening exercises. That brings us to our very last point. And this one is really, really crucial to ensure that your feet and ankles are operating how they should. And more importantly, that they're being integrated with the rest of your chain. So that last point is to bring that newfound function that you have from being barefoot more often, from doing these foot and ankle specific exercises. You want to bring that fundamental understanding and function of the foot to your foundational movement patterns. So your hinge, your squat, your vertical push, and yes, I'm mentioning upper body exercises here: vertical push, vertical pull, horizontal push, horizontal pull. And you might be asking me, well, what about a pull-up? Well, even in a pull-up, you want to have your ankles dorsiflexed. That's going to create tension through that foot and ankle area, and it's going to send, again, sensory information all the way up to the chain into your upper body, and it's going to help you improve the mechanics through the shoulder, the whole shoulder girdle, basically. And so whatever you're doing, always pay attention to what your feet are doing. I don't care if your feet are on the ground, if your feet are on let's say you're doing upright row, you're doing seated cable rows. Even make sure that your feet are straight and your feet are nice and active, maybe even a little bit of external rotation into that little platform where you have your feet. that's really honestly the most important part, because if you don't understand how the feet work in these fundamental patterns like lunging, hinging, and eventually running, you're never going to be able to implement, or rather, you're never going to be able to work up to performing the way that you want without pain and injuries come up. And again, I have a few other video tutorials of how to perform these patterns properly and what the feet should be doing in them. So go check those out and practice them if you haven't. But in my coaching program, Mind Your Movement, we do an in-depth assessment on you. We analyze your posture, the very movement patterns you'll go through in the program to see where your deficiencies actually are. And then from there, we give you a program tailored for your specific issues, and we'll coach you until you get those movements down perfect. And as you go through the process, of course, we'll be increasing the load, we'll be increasing maybe the speed demand. So if you were just doing a regular body weight lunge, then we'll load that lunge up with some barbells, maybe eventually, we'll load it up with some dumbbells, then eventually a barbell, and then maybe we'll lighten the weight again and then make it explosive by adding in a jump or adding in a double jump. There's just infinite variations, and essentially the foundation is learning how to do a lunge on its own, just body weight, really, really well. And we find that even without progressing too far, just by learning how to do these fundamental patterns better, you'll automatically be seeing an increase in your athleticism and your performance, because now your body is going to be operating more efficiently. By doing these exercises absolutely perfectly, aiming to get better at them every time, you're literally subconsciously ingraining better patterns in your body so that when you go do your sport, then you're operating more efficiently, you're operating more in line with your natural design, so the metabolic cost is lower, so that means you're going to recover faster, and then of course you're going to be moving more fluidly, more efficiently, and that's going to help you do whatever activity it is even better. So that brings us to the last point that we help our clients with, is that we help them ramp back up into sports without getting derailed by the pains or the injuries that they have in the past. And the way that we do that is by managing their training load. And in that way, they know exactly when to step on the gas and when to hold back. And that's what's going to make this whole process sustainable. And so if you want my help with that, guys, all you have to do is just book a call down below, and we'll see if it makes sense to partner up. See you on the other side.